So I've got a lead-in intro to I Can't Get Started With You. So are you ready, Pam?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We're going to hit this. So 2 or 3 beats, and then we're in.
Oh.
Yep.
Ooh, that's that key. Gonna play. I've settled revolutions in Spain. The North Pole I have charted. Still I can't get started with you. On the golf course, I'm under par. Metro going have asked me to start. I have a house, a show place. Still I can't get away with you. 'Cause you're so supreme. The lyrics are out of you. Dream day and night of you. I scheme just inside you. Baby, what good does it do? I'm something about Franklin D. Bread with our boys has asked me to tea. Still I'm broken hearted, 'cause I can't get started with you. And here's the best part.
And there's a long, long solo trumpet which will lead. But thank you, Pam. All right, well done. I hope Rynn sang it a lot better than that.
You're good at backup, though.
All right, so now I have a few announcements to make. The restrooms are just around the corner and the door is open. Well, the person who took Victoria's keys to that place, please return them to Victoria. She's standing at the back. Okay, so we have the room until 4, but we need to clear up at 3, and we'll have also goodie bags to take away. So.
Oh, and desserts to put out.
And desserts to put out. So, so don't worry if you don't get enough to eat now, you'll have enough to eat later. So, without more ado, I'm going to announce that Mark Braunstein, author of Radical Vegetarianism, and as eminent agrees as Rynn was in the animal rights movement of vegetarianism, has written a memory of Rynn, which he has asked people to take with them. It will be coming up in the forthcoming issue of
Vegetarian Voice.
Vegetarian Voice. Rather than read it out loud, you can actually read it like you read a book.
Martin suggested I read it to you all and said, oh, I've bored him to death.
So you can get bored to death by reading it.
I have 20 copies, so just, one for a party, one for a household, or whatever.
So thank you for that. Now, the next person I'd like to invite to speak is Freya Dinshaw of the Vegan Society.
As with, I think, all of you, Rynn was a very dear friend. He was a quiet person, and we enjoyed his wisdom and his stories very much. And so it's wonderful to be together with you, all of his friends. I always think when someone leaves, we make new connections and strengthen the old connections, and that's what we're going to do. I think many of you probably had plans to do things with Rynn as we did, and we will continue with those plans. It may be done a little differently, but we'll carry on in Rynn's spirit, and I thank you all.
Oh, Karen Davis had wanted me to read from...
Okay, well, before that happens, I have 2 messages from Rynn's sisters in Florida that were sent by email. So I'll read. This is from Ghislaine Green. I am so proud of my brother, Rynn Berry. He was amazing. I can remember as a young boy, Rynn always loved tennis, swimming, and mostly reading. He later went away to school, and upon his return I would always break out the crayons and paper and make a huge welcome home banner. He was certainly missed. Much later he introduced his vegetarian views, which had evolved to a vegan, raw food lifestyle. He shared so much enthusiasm, recipes and love of animals that I too followed his views. Though at times I would fall off the wagon, in quotes, Rynn would encourage me to stay with the program. As a matter of fact, upon Rynn and Christina's many visits, they would be dubbed the vegan police and inspire us to shape up. There are many more stories I think Christina will share with you. The tale of the durian, she says. Rynn had a wicked, keen sense of humour, but he was always very considerate before he spoke. I would love to watch him speak and appreciated how much he contributed to my own personal tapestry in life. Last week, I did participate on the vegan holistic cruise. I spoke with Dr. Neil Barnard, Dr. Colin Campbell, and Dr. Michael Clapper. They all had a great appreciation and admiration for Rynn Berry and his work, and expressed their deepest condolences. I also met so many people that knew of Rynn and his passion. He will be greatly missed. I would like very much to extend my gratitude and affection to Mr. Charles Berry and his family, to Mrs. Rynn Berry Sr., to Mr. Martin Rowe for being by his side, and especially to Christina Abreu Suzuki for always loving and being there for Rynn. You all meant so much to him, and I hope to meet with you all in the near future. Sincerely, Ghislaine Green. So that's that. Sorry, I'm now moving the next one. So this is from Sigurd Green, or Sai. I was surprised and shocked upon hearing the news that Rynn had passed away, although his passing is still hard to believe. I can honestly say that his guidance on what foods to eat and healthy lifestyle have a daily influence on my family and myself. I am very fortunate to have him as my brother. I would also like to extend my thanks to Christina and to Charles Berry and his family, who have been a tremendous help in this difficult time. So before Pam, I ask you to step up. Pam? Pam? Hold on.
Oh, no, I was just going.
I'm going to ask Sorat Doral of the International Vegetarian Union to say a few words. There he is over there. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Sorat Doral, I'm from Maryland, and like all of you, I also was very shocked and saddened to hear of Rynn's passing, and I had met Rynn in 1993 at the first vegetarian conference. It was actually organized by Freya and her husband Jay, who's also passed away in the year 2000. And one of the things, I think we were destined to meet because Rynn was such a fan of spiritual traditions, and particularly Jainism and Buddhism. And so he was actually giving a talk at this conference in Portland, Oregon. I happened to be in the audience. I think I was probably the only Jain there at the conference at the time. So right at the talk, and then afterwards, we started chatting and talking, and we developed this wonderful friendship, this great exchange of ideas. So, so I've known him for the better part of 2 decades, and I've seen him at many, many events. So whether they were here in this country, whether it was in an event in San Francisco, or he would be coming to DC, we invite him to speak. And he always, as you've heard, as you all know, gave such a great talk, and it was well researched, it was scholarly. And so it was always a pleasure to have him, and especially the discussions that happened afterwards. They were always late night discussions, and he got a chance to meet my parents, and they loved having him there. And of course, the first chapter of his book, Food for the Gods, is about Jainism, and he had recipes that we worked on in at our place, and so it was just a great exchange of ideas. So I'm really honored to have known Rynn for all these years, and I don't want to keep referring to Rynn in the past tense. He is with us. He will always be with us. I have to keep reminding myself that his spirit is alive, and it's incumbent on all of us to keep it alive. So as part of the International Vegetarian Union, we used to put on World Vegetarian Congresses every 2 years. Now we've moved them to every year. And so Rynn had traveled extensively. Christina had also been at those. And so his talks were always well received because they were about spiritual tradition, they were about ethics, they were about history, and these are passions of mine as well. And so he impacted so many people on an international level. So not only here across vegetarian societies, he was such a generous person. He would give his time freely and generously. He would come to various places. We had the DC Veg Fest. He spoke at our very first DC Veg Fest in 1997. He's given talks in North Carolina, another good friend of his, Dylan Barman, also in San Francisco with Dixie May, and so many other vegetarian groups like in San Antonio that he just loved going to and appreciated. And around the world, I've been fortunate enough to plan my travels with these conferences, and so I recall that one of our first conferences was actually here in North America at the Summerfest. We piggybacked with the Summerfest. And so that was probably one of the first times when I've seen him perform as well. And then in Edinburgh and in Dresden, the 100th anniversary of the International Vegetarian Union was in Dresden. It was founded in 1908 in Dresden.
Oh, he did a display.
And so, yes, and so he did a display. As a matter of fact, he got front page publicity in 2 local papers because of his wonderful booklet, Hitler, neither vegetarian nor animal lover. And so I think he was very proud of that, and especially fitting being in Germany at the 100th anniversary in 2008. So I also had the fortune to be in town when Rynn's body was identified. And I was able to go to the hospital. I just want to share my thoughts of what happened, because Rynn was such a great believer in Buddhism and Jainism. And so when I had heard, and I'd been talking to Christina, who was in Brazil at the time, and I talked to Charles, and so I was able to make it to the hospital. And one thing I just recall, and I think Martin, you were there earlier that day too, if I remember right, but I was there that night, and he was there in a very peaceful state, and you've probably seen some of the pictures of him at the time. And what I was hoping to do was, because the Jain tradition believes that the soul exists as long as the breath exists. So no matter what the mental state may be, the soul is there as long as the breath is there. And so what I hoped to do when I was there was to connect with his life force and just hold his hand and his feet. And then I remembered a few Jain prayers that I was able to say while he was there. And I have no doubt that his soul was hovering with his body, and it was ready for its journey. And this one mantra that I recall, I'd like to repeat it here for all of you. And it's called the Namokar mantra. And please excuse me for a second. It was a beautiful experience to be there with Rynn and to tell him how much he was loved and how much he was needed if there was some way for him to be able to reconnect with his body. And so this was one way to at least encourage the Atma, his soul, to do whatever it needed to in its karmic state on its journey. And so it's called the Namokar mantra, and it is, I will repeat it here. So it's Om Namo Arihantanam, Om Namo Siddhanam, Om Namo Ayariyanam, Om Namo Uvajayanam, Om Namo Loye Savasavanam. The first 5 lines are basically showing respect for the spiritual leaders who have attained, are well on their path towards purification. Then it goes, Eso Pancho Namukaro, Sava Bhava Parasano, Mangalanam Cha Savesim, Paramam Ave Mangalam. And those last 4 lines talk about how, how we bow down to these great souls and we try and realize their qualities within ourselves in order to help us purify ourselves. And of all of the great things there are, the most auspicious, the most important is for us to diminish our sins and to achieve the state of purification. So that was the mantra that I was able to do with Rynn. And Western science, there's a lot that we don't understand, and especially when it comes to things like the nature of the soul. And as a physicist, we try and understand at every level, but we just don't have any insight at all. And I'd like to believe that that consciousness and the Atma persists and his atma is where it's supposed to be. And it's for all of us to keep his spirit and his memory